Welcome to the world of Dune Imperium. This is going to be the third in our trifecta of deck-building worker placement games with Endless Winter, Lost Ruins of Arnak, and now Dune Imperium. I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'll be reviewing Dune Imperium, and at some point in the future I will have a full compare and contrast video talking about the pros and cons of each of these three games, what I liked most about each of them, which stood out in different ways, and ultimately which of the three are my favorite. But because I'll be doing that, I will attempt, no guarantees, I will attempt to not actually excessively talk about either of those two other games throughout the course of this review. Now, I will say off the bat, Dune Imperium will be staying in my collection. Like the other two whose names shall not be mentioned, I love this game. The hybrid of worker placement and deck building is a genre that has been working well for me. And they all manage to do things differently within that genre. They all have aspects that feel similar and yet are totally different at the same time. And in Dune Imperium, the quick, short overview of how to play the game is you will draw your hand of 5 cards, and then you start the game with 2 agents, of which you could unlock a third as the game progresses. And with your hand of 5 cards, along the side of each card, you will see these icons that tell you where you can place your agent, where that agent can go on the board. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and play my signet ring, which allows me to place it along any of these regions here, but not along the 4 main houses on the left side of the board. It limits your choice. It more accurately defines your choices that you have in front of you. And so I'll take that agent and I'll start with a decent first move, and I'll add a troop to my barracks over here, and I'll earn 1 persuasion in terms of being able to buy more cards from here. Because ultimately, like I said, it's worker placement and deck building, which means you will place your workers throughout the game, the cards that you buy will allow you to choose where to place your workers, and at the end of each round, you will then buy more cards, because after you've placed your second worker, and with my second worker, perhaps I'll play this one, and I'll put this one over here, earning 3 money, or 3 currency for the game. Solaris, I believe, is the name. And then at the end of all that, what you're going to do with your final round, once you're done placing your workers and using your cards, you will then reveal the remaining cards and cash in the benefits on the bottom, which means every card in your deck is simultaneously represents the potential of where you can potentially put your agent, as well as what benefits you can get when you put your agent. So for instance, this card over here will let you put it in 2 of the houses, and will let you read a card from your deck, will let you trash a card in your deck when you place an agent. But if, on the other hand, if you actually have it until the end, you will instead get 3 persuasion and 1 spice in terms of at the end of that round. And that aspect, that balance of trying to figure out which cards are going to be utilized to fuel your agents and which cards are going to be utilized to trigger the end of the round and earn you benefits that way, make the entire process fun, to the point that you might want to go to the research station to draw 3 more cards, not even caring how you will use the cards during that round, but rather caring about how you will utilize the cards at the end of the round for their bonuses. And throughout the game, you'll all start with the 10 standard cards. This is a typical deck building game in that sense. But throughout the game, you will develop your deck, and you will do so. You'll continuously develop your deck, figure out better engines, while also engaging in an end round combat. That is an important part that will make Dune Imperium stand out from other similar games, which we are totally not talking about. In the sense that at the end of the round, there's going to be a combat in this game, and that combat is going to determine what rewards you win every single round. At the beginning of each round, you're going to reveal a conflict card, which will potentially give you points. It might give you influence in some of these house tracks, or it might just give you spice or Solaris or other in-game benefits. And that combat will be determined by the strength of your units devoted to the combat, as well as potentially some in-game bonuses or end round bonuses. So for instance, this one over here potentially rewards you with 4 or 6 swords towards that end of round combat. And that combat is a huge part of Dune Imperium, managing both your in-game build-up, your engine that you are slowly but surely building, the placement of your workers, and then also ensuring that you have enough troops to devote to the fight, enough of a presence that you will potentially win rewards, or alternatively at least make it so that others have to work hard for what they are getting in this game. You're going to do that until one player hits 10 points, thus triggering endgame, and at the end of that round, whoever has the most points wins, and tiebreakers and all that kind of stuff will be in the game as well. That is basically Dune Imperium. Build your deck, place your workers, engage in combats until ultimately you win the game. There's a few other core aspects going on in this game. So for instance, spice is going to be a huge resource in this game. Gathering gathering spice is important because when you gather spice, you'll be able to turn that in for Solaris or turn that in for more troops or a number of other benefits in this game. The problem is the most effective way of getting spice is going to the desert, and the various desert spots will reward you or be more profitable if you have water to go to those spots. And so water becomes another currency. Solaris is important because you'll be able to buy your third agents with 8 Solaris, or alternatively be able to go to the High Council, which will enable you to buy more cards every single round, because the High Council will give you a regular 2 persuasion towards buying all these cards every single round. That can't be ignored, but then again, nothing else in this game can be ignored either. The houses along the edge of the board are incredibly important. Every time you place an agent in the house, and the cards that let you place agents in the houses are more limited. You have to fight a little harder to get your hands on those cards. But when you do so, you will take a spot. Maybe I'll go over here. I'll take 1 water. I'll also devote some of my troops to the combat that round. And then you will increase your influence in that house. And that's important for a variety of reasons. To begin with, every time you hit the second level of influence in a house, you will get a point. In a game in which you only need 10 points to win, being able to achieve influence in all of the 4 houses is 4 of your 10 points right there. But more than that, because if you eventually gain an alliance with the house, if you move far enough up the track, you'll get a one-time bonus as well as become allied with that house, which will trigger the rewards and benefits on certain cards and also give you another point. Although this one is temporary, because rest assured, other players will be fighting you to try to take away your point and get one for themselves in that house alliance track. You're managing all this, you're drawing in tree cards, which will give you both in-game benefits, combat bonuses, as well as end-game points. A whole bunch of different things going on here, all within this deck building worker placement game. And so, like I said already, I like this game. And part of it's just going to be the fact that it is a deck building worker placement game. I don't know what it is about that combination, but it's 3 for 3 on me. It's 3 for 3 for me, so 3 for 3 for me. That's a hard one. 3 for 3 for me. It's 3 for 3 for me so far. I like that. I want to put it on a t-shirt. It's 3 for... I'm doing this too many times. Anyways, I clearly like deck building worker placement games. I have enjoyed every single one that I have played, and I don't know if I've played any others that I haven't. I've seen a few people mention other games such as Obsession, which I happen to like Obsession, but those games don't have typical deck building. They have hand management going on, or different aspects of worker placement. Since, for instance, in Obsession, the worker placement is not in any way competitive. It's your own worker placement on your own tiles. So other titles that I've seen with this supposed combination of mechanics haven't actually been the combination of mechanics that I'm looking for, which means I'm looking for the next deck building worker placement game as well. And secondly, the game length. The game length in this is perfect, coming in at roughly 60 to 90 minutes depending on the player count. It delivers enough time and tension to actually do everything you want to do. And again, we'll talk about this in comparison videos, but other games always left me wanting just to drop more. But in Dune Imperium, I feel that the amount of time to get things done, not just game time, but actual time to get your engine moving, to cash in on it, and to win the game, I think it's perfect. It doesn't, if it went on too long, if it went a little longer, then the game would be unnecessarily long. But if it was shorter, I'd still want to do more. So far, this game gives me the perfect amount of time to get all the things done that I want to do, to build up my deck and cash in on my deck in a way that I don't in any way, at any point, feel I just want more time to feel like I can do more stuff. And part of that might be the conflict aspect, part of that might just be the 10 rounds or whatever, not 10 rounds, but 10 points you get. But overall, the time for this game is very solid. The variable player powers combined with the deck building means that every game will be different to an extent. You have a variety of house cards, each with their own power, each that will affect the game in different ways. So for instance, we have Countess Ariana Thorvald, who, whenever she harvests spice, she gets 1 less spice, but draws a card, and that will shift things up. It'll change how you approach the game, which spots are more valuable for you, which spots are more valuable for an opponent. And then the cards that will come out, because this is a card row style deck builder in the sense that there's no set piles. There are a few set piles that are always available, but the main deck is going to be shuffled and then come out in different orders and configurations every single game, adjusting how you build your deck. And every single time you can be like, well, there's more cards from the Spacing Guild, and so maybe I want to focus on the Spacing Guild this round, but it doesn't really complement my power, so maybe Maybe I'll try getting those other cards and hoping other stuff come out, but it'll provide a different puzzle every single time. It shifts up the game such that this very static board ends up being different through the use of the deck and the use of the cards that will come up. The economic options in this game balance incredibly well. In all of our games of Dune, we have seen people do different things and successfully challenge each other. We've seen people who barely try doing any deck building, keeping it to trying to run for the points as fast and as quickly as possible without focusing on an excessive amount of buildup. And they have either won or come close to winning multiple times. We've seen people cash in for the agents. We've seen people go for the High Council. We've seen a variety of different options pursue, different houses that people dedicated themselves towards. And it has all proven to be competitive and it has all proven to work well. And then that chaining of the water for the spice, for the Solaris, for the units, for the back and the forth, and rinse and repeat. It is a sequence of an economic engine to a degree within this greater ecosphere that is and has been rewarding. Going to sell your spice and selling 5 spice for 12 money and then being able to get your Swordmaster and jump on the High Council seat all in one turn can be, well, it can be a very rewarding turn, and I like that. And for me, the thing that I like the most about Dune is that card aspect that I mentioned in the beginning. That aspect that you have your hand of cards and you're going to use 2 of them to place your agents. But then the rest of them you'll reveal at the end, and suddenly you have 2 extra persuasion to buy cards with, as well as having extra combat in the round. That aspect of making every card feel useful, even though you're only actually using 2 for your agents every round. It is already a mechanic I like, but it becomes even more powerful when you have those turns, whether through card locations on the board or whether through actual cards you'll be using. When you have these turns and rounds where you have 5 extra cards in your hand by the end of the round, and you show a hand of 5 cards and you buy a bunch of things. Perhaps you buy a Spice Must Flow card which has a point on it. A single card that gives you 1 of your 10 points. You buy a few of those. You build up enough of an economic engine in that sense. Forget the Solaris, but focus on your persuasion, and you can actually win the game through the deck building alone if you do it right. Overall, Dune is incredibly fun to play, but there are a few things that I will nitpick at. And to begin with, from all those games that I'm definitely totally not talking about in this review at all, Dune Imperium is the one that I was least excited to play, because of the fact that the art in this game is fairly bland. It's okay, it does the job, it is functional, do not get me wrong. But it didn't pull me in. The art, the components, everything going on here visually did not pull me in. It has the Dune name, and it's from Direwolf Studios, which, I mean, those 2 already are enough of a reason to pick it up, and that's why I was excited. But I was excited despite the visual appeal of the game, and that carries over to my actual playing of the game. It is fine. I have no real complaints, but I am certainly not going to tell you how beautiful the board looks. It is functional. It does the job. It's okay, but it's the game you want. It's not the art or the board or anything else. It is the game that should and, well, does draw me in. Some of the integrations and balance in this game will result in repeated sequences. So very often, I mentioned that the whole water to sand to Solaris thing, it does result in a certain amount of daisy chaining in this game, in which you will see people going to the same locations in the same sequences, because to a certain extent, what happens there is a little bit predetermined. Now that will be mixed up, like I said already, through the powers and the deck building, and that will keep things fresh. But the actual board state in many aspects were a little repetitive in the continued way that you'll see every game after game after game, you'll see people going through the same sequences in how and where they place their agents. And that part felt a little bit repetitive to me. Again, the rest of the game still makes it interesting. The conflict makes it interesting. The deck building and your unique deck make it interesting. Those things shift up the game. But the actual locations on the board, because of how fixed they are, and because of the way that the economic engine works, to a certain extent does drive you towards repeated sequences in this game. And then lastly, from the things I didn't like, sometimes you can feel locked into house favor cards that aren't available to buy. What I mean by that is you're consistently trying to get house favor cards that will allow you to go in the houses. These are the hardest spots to actually get to in the game. And so that tends to work most of the time, but very often you'll be trying to get favor in the Spacing Guild, and yet none of the cards that allow you to go to the Spacing Guild will come up. And there are ways to mitigate that. You can get a fold space card, but those have to be trashed after you use them. There are adjustments to be made, but sometimes the actual options of where you're trying to build your strategy around just won't happen in this game. As far as what I can see being a problem for others, combat in this game can be all or nothing. Now, I don't mean there's no second place. There is. There's first place and second place, and in a 4-player game, there's also third place. But you can have combats in the game where 2 players give up, 12, well, forgot 12. You can have a combat where 2 players give up 18 strength each, and then there's a winner who kind of ekes out the win. And then the next round, because all your units are gone and it's over and dead, the next round someone else walks in with 6 strength and picks up another win, paying significantly less for the privilege. Because of that all or nothing aspect to combat where you try to fight, and then everyone dies and it's over, and you rinse and repeat for the next cycle, sometimes combat can feel a little bit annoying that was the round. The round that you decided to finally devote heavily to combat, that's the round when someone else reveals 3 intrigue cards and takes it away from you. So it can feel a drop punishing in that sense. And then lastly, for other people, the potential for feeling stuck if you didn't build a cohesive deck can certainly happen in this game. Ideally, you want to combine different cards in different ways. Perhaps you get a bunch of cards that reward you for one of the houses you've been in. Perhaps you have cards that allow you to trash cards from your deck, draw other cards, and they in different ways sequence together. But if you don't actually build out a good deck, you can at times feel victim to the deck building of Dune Imperium. Overall, as far as my final thoughts go for this game, like I said already, I'm keeping this game in my collection. I absolutely love the game, and from these other games, it brings combat to the table. It is the most interactive from the 3 games that I have played in this genre, and for that alone, it stands out. But past that, the whole house mechanic, the whole gaining influences houses, the various cards you'll be drawing, and that agent thing where you are revealing your cards at the end and getting a whole bunch of bonuses for tons of cards in your hand, all of that combines together into a game that I love the deck building, I love the worker placement, I love the economy, the unique character powers, and the conflict present in this game. And like I said already, the game length, and not time-wise, but more feeling like you got the perfect amount of stuff done in Dune Imperium is intensely rewarding, and, well, I like this game. As far as longevity, honestly, this game's not going anywhere anytime soon. The combat and the conflict are one of the things that keep it fresh, but the board itself, like I said, is a little bit repetitive in some aspects, but nonetheless, I think between the deck building, the combat, and the interactive aspects of this game, I still believe this one will be staying on my shelf for quite some time. Overall, if it wasn't clear already, I heartily recommend you try out Dune Imperium. I also heartily recommend you try out the other 2 as well. They are all solid additions to my collection, hopefully to yours as well. And keep your eyes peeled for a full review compare and contrast video for all 3 of these games because, well, they're good games and I kind of just want to talk about them more. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this review. Any questions or comments, let me know in the comments down below, and I will, of course, try to answer them. Have a good one.